بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم نحمده ونصلي ونسلم على رسوله الكريم أما بعد وعن معاذ بن أنس رضي الله تعالى عنه قال قال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم من أكل طعاما فقال الحمد لله الذي أطعمني هذا ورزقنيه من غير حول مني ولا قوة غفر له ما تقدم من ذنبه رواه أبو داود والترمذي رحمهم الله تعالى وقال حديث حسن. It is narrated on the authority of Mu'adh ibn Anas radiallahu ta'ala anhu. He mentions that the Prophet of Allah sallallahu alayhi wasallam, he mentioned, Man akala ta'aman, whomsoever eats food, faqala, and after eating that food, he says, Alhamdulillahi alladhi at'amani hadha. All praise is due to that Allah who fed me this food. وَرَزَقَنِيهِ مِنْ غَيْرِ حَوْلٍ مِّنِّي وَلَا قُوَّةٍ, and provided me with this food, with this sustenance, بِغَيْرِ حَوْلٍ مِّنِّي, مِنْ غَيْرِ حَوْلٍ مِّنِّي, without any endeavor from my side, without any effort from my side, وَلَا قُوَّةٍ, and without any power from my side. غُفِرَ لَهُ مَا تَقَدَّمَ مِنْ ذَنْبِ. Whomsoever reads this dua after eating, then the Prophet of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam says that غُفِرَ لَهُ مَا تَقَدَّمَ مِنْ ذَنْبِ, all his previous minor sins will be forgiven. Now, when it comes to the dua after eating, then there are many supplications that are narrated in the Hadīth of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. One is in this narration of Mu'adh ibn Anas radiallahu anh. One is that famous dua that we all pray and we've learned since our childhood. Alhamdulillahi alladhi at'amana wa saqana wa ja'alana muslimin. That all praise is for that Allah that fed us, wasaqana, and gave us something to drink, وَجَعَلَنَا مُسْلِمِينَ, and He made us from the Muslims, He made us from those that are obedient to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. When it comes to giving us sustenance and food, then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the real sustainer, and that individual that gives us, that deity that gives us food. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala uses means and asbab in this dunya for that food and for that sustenance to reach us. No matter who that means is or what that means and sabab is, what we need to realize that that food that is reaching me, that food that I am eating, this water that I am drinking, in reality, it is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that is feeding me and that is giving me this water to drink. Yes, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala may use parents as a means. So there's children, so Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, their parents, they go out, they earn, and then they bring that food on the table. The father brings the money home, the mother cooks the food, and the food is on the dastarkhan. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala used the parents as a means, but in reality it is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala who brought that food to that child. Sometimes Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala uses those individuals that are close to us as a means for our sustenance and rizq to reach us. Our family members, our brothers, our siblings, our parents, our own children. Sometimes Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala even gets our rizq and our sustenance to us through an enemy. Sometimes someone, he may have kidnapped another individual. So he's committing a crime, he's not doing the right thing. But after he kidnaps him, he wants to keep him alive. So what does he do? He feeds him to keep him alive. So despite this person being his enemy, he is feeding him so that he stays alive. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is giving him rizq through an enemy, through someone who he is not fond of, who he does not like. So this is one thing that we need to understand from all the du'as of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. This is one lesson that we learn, that it is not any individual that gives us food. It is not us that brings food to the dastarkhan. It is not us that sustains ourselves or our family members. It is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala who is Razzaq. It is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala who is our sustainer. And this is why Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam also used to read this dua, Alhamdulillahi alladhi at'amana wa saqana wa ja'alana muslimin. That all praise is for that Allah who fed us. Wa saqana, gave us something to drink. And these two are great bounties. To eat, to drink, they're great bounties. But Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he didn't make us lose out from that bounty, which will be a means of sa'ada, greatness and barakah in this world and the akhir. He reminds us of that bounty also. That yes, eating and drinking, this is a bounty. But وَجَعَلَنَا مُسْلِمِينَ, all praises for that Allah who also made us Muslimin, who made us Muslims, who made us obedient servants of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So this is that famous dua. All of us should have learned it. If not, then we should all make an effort to learn this dua also. Khair, in this riwayah, in this narration, Hazrat Mu'adh bin Anas radiallahu ta'ala anhu narrates another dua from Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, which we can all recite after eating. He mentions that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam mentioned, Man akala ta'aman, whomsoever ate food, faqala, and after eating that food, in the Arabic language, the letter fa, it comes for ta'qib, something that happens after something else. So after eating, you carry out this action, meaning after eating, you pray this dua. Which dua? First you should read Alhamdulillah alladhi at'amana wa saqana wa ja'alana muslimin, and then you should also read this dua, Alhamdulillah alladhi at'amani hadha. All praise is for that Allah who fed me this food, wa razaqanihi min ghayri hawlin minni wala quwwa, and He provided me with this without any effort of mine, without any power of mine. With this dua, any other duas that we can learn, we should also learn those duas and say it after we eat. After eating breakfast, after eating lunch, after eating dinner, after maybe we have some snacks, maybe just tea. At any time, maybe just fruits. But whenever we sit down to eat, after eating, we should read all these duas. It is not just when we have a big meal, or only when we're having lunch or dinner. No, even if it's just tea, even if we're just having a few biscuits or a few dates, after we eat, then we should make an effort to read all the du'as that we've learned of the du'as after eating. Now one thing which we learn from this narration of Mu'adh bin Anas radiallahu anh is that Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam, when he used to make the dua and praise Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he used to say, Min ghayri hawlim minni wala quwwa, that Allah who provided me and sustained me with this food without any effort of mine, without any endeavor from my side, and without any power of mine. To understand this dua of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, first we will need to understand that insan and humans, we as humans, when we want to bring something into our ownership, then there will be two types of people, two types of insan. One is that individual who has strength, and one is that individual who is weak. If the person has strength and is strong, he's healthy, then he will work to earn that risk and that sustenance or that thing and bring it into his ownership. For example, you have an individual, he is healthy, he's doing good, he's strong, he'll go out, he'll work. After he works, he's going to earn some money. And through that money, he will buy food, and have some food on the dastarkhan. Or you have an individual, he wants to gain something, he wants to buy something. So what will he do? If he's healthy, he will go, he will work, he will earn some money, earn some livelihood, and then he will buy that and bring it into his ownership. This is that individual who has strength. He will use his physical strength to bring that into his ownership, and then he will use his mental strength to see where he can spend that which he has brought into his ownership, where he can use that. Okay, this is one type of individual. The other type of individual is that individual who is weak. He does not have strength. Because he's weak, he may be handicapped, he may not be able to walk properly, he may not have a hand, he may be ill, because of which he cannot work. So now he's only left with one. That's his mental strength. So what will he have to do? He'll have to plan. He'll have to think that, okay, if I want to earn some livelihood, I can't work. So how am I going to earn that livelihood? Or if I want this in my ownership, or if I want some money, how am I going to gain that money? I can't work. So what will he do? He will go to so-and-so individual, show that he's poor. He'll go to so-and-so individual, ask for help. Or he knows someone in his family or his relatives, he'll go to them and ask for some help. Or he'll go to the government, the hukumat, ask for some help. Whatever means he will use his mental strength, some tadbir, and he will try to acquire that thing and bring it into his milkiyat and his ownership. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam in this hadith he mentions, min ghayri hawlin minni wala quwwa, without any effort from my side and without any power, without any tadbir from my side and without any power. So this rizq that has come into my possession, this rizq and this sustenance, this food which I am eating and partaking of, this is not that which I have acquired through my physical strength or through my mental strength. It is that which has been given to me by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Now someone can question, that is very possible, and it is possible, and it is true that many of us are healthy. We do go and eat, and we acquire that food and then eat it. We go, we work, we earn some money and then we eat. We use our mental strength and our physical strength. Then what does it mean by min ghayri hawlin minni wala quwwa? So the muhaddithin and the commentators of hadith, they give an amazing answer and they say that if we want to understand this, then it's very easy to understand. This physical strength that has been given to us, this is given to us by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This mental strength that has been given to us, it has been given to us by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We thought of where to work, we thought of how to acquire that wealth, we thought of how to acquire that rizq and that sustenance. We used our physical strength to acquire that sustenance. All this power, all this might, all this intellect, this was given to us by who? By Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So when Allah gave us that intellect, when Allah gave us that strength, and we use that strength to acquire that rizq and that sustenance or that thing and bring it into our ownership, then how can we say that we acquired it from our strength? In reality, that is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's strength. In reality, it is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala giving us. And the ulama and the scholars give an amazing example and they say, you have a poor person, someone who does not have money, who is not well off, he cannot even buy food. But you have a well-off person, someone who is doing financially well, and what does he say? What does he do? He tells that poor person that don't worry, every morning and evening I will give you $15 or $20. So in the morning I'll give you $20, in the evening I'll give you $20. Now that this individual, in the morning he gets that $20, and what does he do? He goes and he buys food, and he buys that food which he likes. In the evening, he gets hungry, he gets that money, he goes and buys food again, and he buys that food which he likes. Now someone asks that individual that this food that you are getting, yesterday you were poor, so he will say, this is not me, this is so and so feeding me. Halaki, he's buying the food, he's eating the food, He's going and buying that food which he wants. But he will still say that it is so and so that is feeding me. Why? Because if so and so did not give him that money, he would not have that ability to buy that food. In the same manner, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us that ability to acquire that sustenance, acquire that rizq, physical ability, mental ability. So when we do acquire that rizq and that sustenance, then it is not us, it is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala who is feeding us. And this is exactly what Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam wants us to understand in each and every dua after eating. That it is not from our side, it is not us that is helping ourselves, it is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that is helping us. It is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala who is feeding us and who is the real sustainer. So in this hadith also, Mu'adh bin Anas radiallahu ta'ala anhu, the one which he narrates, in this hadith also Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam is mentioning the same thing. Alhamdulillahi alladhi at'amani hadha wa razaqanihi min ghayri hawlim minni wala quwwa. So this is also something that we need to understand, that any rizq, any sustenance we receive, then we must understand that it is not ourselves, it is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala who is sustaining us and giving us that food. Allama Suyuti rahmatullahi alayh, he has also mentioned this hadith in his book Al-Jame al-Saghir, and in that he has mentioned the same narration but with, and the same dua but with a few extra wording. And in that, it's that individual who also, after he wears clothes, he says, Alhamdulillahi alladhi kasani. All praise is for that Allah who clothed me. Then also, غُفِرَ لَهُ مَا تَقَدَّمَ مِنْ ذَنْبِ, all his previous sins will be forgiven. So also over here, Alhamdulillahi alladhi at'amani. After receiving sustenance and rizq, we praise Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That is Allah that fed me, Allah that granted me sustenance and rizq. And after getting clothes and wearing clothes, it is also our duty that we praise Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that it is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that clothed me. It is not myself that I bought this I bought these clothes, or so and so gifted me these clothes. No, who put that thought in that individual's mind to gift you that? If you went out and worked and got money, who gave you that strength? It is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So also over there, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam is giving us that same advice and that same lesson, that again, turn your mind towards the power of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the qudrat of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the azmat and the greatness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that it is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that provides, it is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that gives. This is why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in one hadith Qudsi, he says that all, Ya ibadi, O my slaves, all of you are poor, all of you are hungry, but except for those that I feed. So ask me for food and I will feed you. All of you are naked except for those that I clothe. So ask me to clothe you and I will clothe you. I will grant you those clothes. So this is what we learn, and this is the moral and the lesson of these du'as, that we turn to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We understand the azmat, the qudrat of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And never, never in your life let this thought cross your mind that this ni'mat and this blessing that I've received is on my own accord. This sustenance, it's on my own accord. This wealth, it's on my own accord. No, at any time, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala can take that away from you. There's people that were billionaires, overnight they become paupers. In our time, it's not years and years back, in our time. People, they go to sleep as millionaires and billionaires, but they wake up as paupers. They took all care of their wealth. They amassed all their wealth. And they made sure they had all the legal documents and everything. But what happened? There was a small loophole. And so took advantage of that loophole. And now they became qabid and took control over that wealth and took away their wealth. So things happen. This life that we are so proud of, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala can take it away anytime. So wealth we're proud of, Allah can take it away anytime. The sihat, the strength that we're proud of, Allah can take it away anytime. This intellect that we're so proud of, Allah can take away that intellect and make us go crazy anytime. So let us turn to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, understand the azmat, the qudrat of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and all the blessings we receive, let us praise Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for those blessings. Inna rabbaka fa'alun lima yurid. Indeed, your Lord, He does as He wishes. So let us keep this in mind, and before we become proud of any ni'mat or any blessing, let us keep this verse in mind and let us turn to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala first and foremost allow me to practice upon these ahadith of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, and then the rest of us. Ameen. Wa akhiru da'wana alhamdulillahi rabbil alameen. Wa sallillahumma wa sallim ala sayyidina wa nabiyyina wa maulana Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi.